Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jack Douglas. If we were to make a list of the gayest and most colorful cities in the Western Hemisphere, Mexico City and Panama City would surely be high on that list. But instead of making believe with a paper list, let's just pick up our TV passports and sail right now. And best of all, we're going to arrive at sundown after the shadows fall. This is our true travel tale, A Twilight in Two Cities.
The Jack Douglas True Television Series, in association with Bing Crosby Productions. Across the 7 seas, combining the different worlds of travel and adventure, and presenting tonight, Sundown, a tour of the world's most exciting cities after the shadows fall.
They call it the Mexicali Rose, the fairest flower in the land of Montezuma. And like all big cities, Mexico City reaches full bloom at sundown after the shadows fall. But let's bypass the twilight scenery and meet our hosts. Salvador Quesada, the brilliant designer of furnishings and original decor pieces. Conchita Solis, a beautiful ballerina with the Ballet de Mexico. And Loreto Velasquez, one of Mexico City's thousands of mariachi violinists. On this particular night, sundown came to Mexico City at 7 minutes past 7. The cars make a beeline for the wide boulevards, and the shops and stores turn on their charm to entice the pedestrian. The neons make it emphatically clear that Mexico City is Spain in North America. Because of the long midday siesta, Salvador Quesada worked into the early evening as usual. This is office routine that must be done whether he likes it or not. But these are samples of what he does best, designing attractive metal fittings and decorative pieces for export to smart shops throughout the world. An hour before sundown, Salvador telephoned a lovely young ballerina he had met only briefly several weeks before. He had remembered her name, and all he knew was that she was with the Ballet de Mexico, which is under the direction of Amalia Hernandez. Conchita Solis was impatient for rehearsals to end. It isn't every night that a girl has a date with a handsome bachelor who also happens to be a very successful designer. So, impatiently but politely, Conchita watched as other members of the company rehearsed. At last, it's Conchita's turn, a folk dance based on the old Veracruz culture. She's a happy girl because this is her last rehearsal number. Minutes later, she had changed into street clothes and left the school. For her, the day was just beginning. In the life of Loreto Velasquez, sundown generally means just one thing: get dressed in fancy clothes and become a wandering minstrel, a mariachi, or what we would call a street musician. At sundown, after the shadows fall, Loreto and his friend Juan Gonzalez meet as usual at the same place and light up a smoke to make their plans. Now, as a rule, they will separate and play single. Sometimes they will join up with other mariachis. But first, always first, an evening prayer at the shrine of Saint Cecilia, considered the patroness saint of musicians. Salvador Quesada waited out the clock until the time of his dinner date with Conchita, 9 p.m. He lives alone in a beautiful apartment at number 7, Michelet. This is Salvador's self-portrait. Yes, he's also an artist and a good one. And it only takes one guess to figure out who decorated the stunning bachelor apartment. Conchita's exotic dark-haired beauty disguises one of the sweetest, kindest, and most gracious personalities we've ever met on our camera caravans. Many of Mexico City's office workers are still on their way home from work. As far as the natives are concerned, the night hasn't even begun. But there are always tourists around who aren't aware of the working and playing schedules, so mariachis like Laredo take their posts at a favored street corner, hoping to pick up some pesos from the tourist trade, playing a song for a peso. The street urchins are playing Loteria, the Mexican picture card game. A taxi pulls up to the corner and Laredo races to meet it before some other mariachi beats him to it. But no luck. It's just an old friend who asks how things are going. Laredo smiles grimly. Business is terrible. Not a song, not a peso. A woman selling tickets for the National Lottery promises Laredo his luck will change, providing Laredo will buy a ticket for a peso, about 8 cents. Luck indeed. Laredo says the only luck he's ever had was staying alive, but he buys the ticket. The Mauna Loa restaurant was the first of many places Salvador and Conchita would visit. They planned cocktails here, dinner elsewhere. The atmosphere at the Mauna Loa is pure Polynesian, one of the most attractive restaurants of its kind anywhere. The food is excellent, and the huge broilers are screened off by glass and therefore plainly visible to all. Now, if you look beyond Conchita and Salvador, what appears to be a painting isn't. These are real pink flamingos from the Mexican coast. The management of the Mauna Loa is terribly romantic, and the head waiters like to play Cupid by presenting ladies with corsages of fresh flowers. Best of all, the flowers are free. This is just about the place to wine and dine in Mexico City, the Rincón de Goya, deriving its name from Spain's immortal painter. And from the moment you step through the massive doors, you somehow feel that you're not in Mexico City, but in Madrid or Barcelona. Waiters, dressed in the costumes of old Spain, add to the Spanish atmosphere. More music on the street. Salvador engages a mariachi band. Meanwhile, a sketch artist begged for the chance to sketch Conchita, for a fee, of course, and Salvador agreed. But watch the expression of the boy on the right as he looks from the picture to the subject and back again. He's just checking up on the artist. The Loteria Nacional, the National Lottery, was originated in Mexico in 1770 by decree of King Charles III of Spain. 65% of the money from the sale of tickets is divided among the winners, and much of the balance is used to support public welfare projects. The actual drawing is open to the public, and some of the hopeful attend. There were no winners here, and Laredo also had to tear up his ticket. Well, out of sheer boredom, still unable to find any customers willing to pay for his music, he struck up a tune for his penniless admirers. La Fuente is another landlocked port of call for those seeking unusual nightlife entertainment. On this occasion, La Fuente is sponsoring a beauty contest honoring Alberto Vargas, creator of the famed Varga Girl. And that's Varga in the artist smock, and these are some of the semi-finalists bringing to life Varga's magazine creations of yesteryears. Some of you men may remember this one, the Varga Bridesmaid. The winner, a lovely girl who wisely chose to wear a Mexican sombrero, a nostalgic touch that had its effect on the judges. Their decision was wildly supported. The Astoria is also high on the must list for the visitor at sundown. Here, an Afro-Cuban troupe and dances full of voodoo overtones. Catacumbas means catacombs, and the neon sign says Fantastico, and that it is, the eeriest night spot in Mexico City. The Catacumbas has a collection of mummies from the arid regions of Guanajuato. Well, meanwhile, having escorted Conchita to her home, Salvador then rounded up a dozen mariachis, including Laredo, and had them serenade outside Conchita's window. Now, if a light goes on and off, it will indicate that Conchita has enjoyed the evening and that Salvador may call again. There's no mistaking the signal, and Salvador Quesada is a happy young man. Senora Angela de Fonseca became a widow when her husband passed away several years ago at the age of 88. But when the Fonsecas gather, they give the senora little time to think of sad things. There's only the present and those who live in the present. Her robust sons and sons-in-law, her daughters and daughters-in-law, and the handsome grandchildren she adores. Senora Fonseca does not have a scrapbook. All the memories that have any meaning are proudly mounted on the walls of the modest apartment. This photograph of her was her husband's favorite. Senor Fonseca passed away at his carpentry workbench, but years ago when revolutions in Mexico were common, he was a soldier and a good one, a captain in the cavalry. Dinner ended, Mama Angela insists that dishes can wait and orders her brood to the small living room where the most valuable piece of furniture is the television set. And there below the border, they love television with a passion, and a popular local jest is that the only real emergency telephone calls go to the family doctor or the TV repairman. And in Mexico, as in our own country, only Mom seems able to make the set work. And they love those gringo cowboys. When the sons and daughters and grandchildren leave, Mama Angela has nothing left except some modest furniture and the four walls. The walls are quite enough for this gentlewoman who lives now only for the rest of the Fonsecas. Shortly after 10, not even the familiar walls can hold the senora's attention. Even Taco, her sole companion at night, surrenders to drowsiness, so perhaps a bit of fresh air is in order. And for a single wistful moment, Senora Fonseca thinks perhaps she might enjoy a short stroll. But no, the pattern of habit is too strong. She will take the bird indoors, give Taco a nightcap of milk, and then, of course, there are the dishes, and so to bed. There's much more in store for us, ladies and gentlemen, when we resume our journey. We'll continue in just a few moments. As the crow flies, it's about 1,500 miles from Mexico City to Panama City, the capital of Panama. And even at night, we're reminded that much of Panama is still primitive jungle. This statue honoring Balboa symbolizes Panama's heritage as one of the oldest white settlements in continental America. Panama City is situated on the Pacific side of the canal, and the canal zone virtually surrounds the capital city. but through its port of Balboa in the Canal Zone, Panama City is in touch with the entire world. And as in the case of Mexico, the neons make it clear that Spanish is most decidedly the favorite language. The Canal Zone influence of the USA is reflected in neons employing both languages. Panama is a free port, so that many luxury items from all parts of the world are sold here very cheaply. Many of the city's best shops are owned by Hindus, and much of the merchandise featured is from the Far East, such as this Japanese kimono. This beautiful hand-embroidered tablecloth is selling for $160, a fraction of its true worth in our country. If you're fond of ivory, you've come to the right place. Chinese junks, bridges, a magnificent chess set, and even tea tables with carved ivory tops. How the people of a city entertain themselves at sundown is generally a good indicator of the character of the people and the city. And surprisingly, although Panama City is a sailor's town, most of the entertainment features native and Spanish folk dances. This man, Mr. Fritz, will play an important real-life role in our story. Mr. Fritz applauds, but he isn't through yet. His next stop is the Salon Richie, featuring a dancer who performs with a live boa constrictor draped around his neck and shoulders. Panamanians love subtle humor, and here the dancers poke good-natured fun at the limbo dancers of Trinidad by not dancing under the limbo stick. Well, this was too subtle for us, but the dancers were worth watching anyway. The owner of this phone, our nightclubbing friend Mr. Fritz, was sound asleep by midnight, and he relished this call not a bit. Well, we can't blame him much. It's only 18 minutes to 3 a.m. The caller is polite but adamant, and Mr. Fritz dresses in a hurry. The caller is the government of the United States. Earlier that same evening, this man, Mr. Clifford Nurse, a man who sees very little of the daylight hours, spent the minutes before dinner playing with his youngest children. The nurses have 9 children, 7 girls and 2 boys. The boys, ages 3 and 1.5, are the youngest. And the youngest of these is the pet of the entire family, but you'd never guess it at dinner time. Every time he reaches for something, somebody takes it away. Despite the many children, this family lives better than the average Panamanian family, mostly because Junior's daddy has had the same good job for 30 years. That a boy, Junior. Finally, near midnight, when Mr. Fritz was just hitting the sack, Mr. Nurse said goodnight to his wife and went to work. The call to Mr. Fritz came from this office, and his name is posted under the words Pilots. Next out, Captain Fritz. This vessel has been waiting at the entrance to the canal, waiting for its pilot, Captain Fritz. Once on the bridge and until journey's end, some 12 to 15 hours later, Captain Fritz is in charge of navigation. Clifford Nurse, who probably has never met Captain Fritz, had already been on the job for several hours. His job is handling the hawsers and cables that are attached to the locomotives, which in turn will slowly tug the vessel through the locks. The hawsers are rowed to the vessel and made secure. A security officer alerts the dispatcher's office that the vessel is ready to be pulled through the lock, and now a complex but virtually foolproof system of procedure starts to roll. Here on this magnetic board, one of the dispatchers gave us a condensed illustration of how the progress of the vessel would be charted every step of the way until it passed through the canal and reached the opposite ocean. The ship-to-shore phone contact is maintained throughout the passing, and at least one pair of human eyes aboard the vessel is glued to the radar. These handles are the keys to the canal. They open and close the lock gates, raise and lower the water levels. The signal is go, and the locomotive pulls the vessel through the first of a series of locks leading to Gatun Lake. Especially in the locks, the pilot is the busiest man aboard, and this is high-tension work. For just one moment of carelessness, just one little mistake, and almost half the world's shipping would come to a standstill. Not until the locks have been safely navigated does Captain Fritz relax and gobble a quick sandwich. At journey's end, the pilot's work is finished and the captain of the vessel assumes navigational responsibility. A launch takes Captain Fritz to shore, and from there, a long train ride back to Panama City. He may not have another vessel for days, but Clifford Nurse, the man who sleeps until sundown, will be back at his job the very next night. At sundown, after the shadows fall, the well-to-do in our story are represented by these daughters and sons of Panama's wealthy families. And in Panama City, the well-to-do are very wealthy indeed. These youngsters, well, the world is their oyster, but they aren't dilettantes. One of the girls works for an airline, and the boy studies drama in Mexico City. Boy meets girl, boy dates girl, and since they're in their 20s, they're welcome at the best night spots in the city. And where haven't we seen this name before? Caramba, it's the samba, or is it the mambo or the cha-cha-cha? Well, at 1 a.m., it really doesn't matter. They have a casino here that reminds the visitor of Monte Carlo in miniature. The croupiers are formally attired, and it's all very chic and black tie. But despite the stacks of chips and evidence, the wagering is extremely modest. For these wealthy Panamanians are shrewd, educated citizens who aren't about to risk their savings just to see a little ball go round and round. At 4:30 a.m., the presses roar in Panama City and Mexico City, bringing to the people of these two colorful cities the happenings of the night before. The news will be important news, much of it of the outside world. But long after these headlines have made way for new headlines, the people we have met will still be here, waiting for you and me to pay them another visit. Perhaps in person, but by all means, at sundown, after the shadows fall. Well, now as time goes on, we'll surely forget their names, but it's likely that we'll recognize their faces. Faces that reflect warmth and kindness and happiness, most of them anyway, and most means better than half, and that's a mighty good percentage when it comes to people. Well, adios, amigos, and thanks for this twilight visit to your two exciting cities.